Hello guys, Andy from Next Gen Base here with another edition of NGB Retro where the old man plays the old games. Although today we're not really playing anything, we are taking another look at some retro style-y hardware in the form of the Evercade EXP handheld retro gaming console. Obviously mentioned this in last week's video about the Evercade VS and have finally got hold of one. So my Evercade obsession is fully in full swing now. So it is the handheld version of the Evercade VS. Evercade originally was released as a handheld, although the original Evercade hardware is now unavailable. You've got the VS and you've got the EXP, which looks a little bit like this lovely little white handheld. And yeah, so what do you get when you get an Evercade EXP? Well, it's basically the same ecosystem as the Evercade VS desktop console. It uses exactly the same cartridges, but you're getting obviously a handheld form factor with a 4.3-inch IPS screen running at an 800 by 480 resolution. You've got a battery which is going to net you about 4 to 5 hours of battery life, chargeable via a USB-C port. It does have an HDMI out on it. We're going to take a closer look at the hardware in a minute, which will let you play the games on a big screen, albeit in 720p resolution, so not quite that full HD 1080p experience that you get from the Evercade VS. And you also get 24 games in the box. You get 18 games from Capcom, hence the Capcom branding all over the box. You've got Chun-Li looking like she's going to punch you up on the corner of the box there. But you also get included a cartridge of arcade games from IREM. So IREM you're going to know from games like R-Type, maybe Moon Patrol. That's another one of their somewhat more popular games. But you got 6 games on that cartridge, so for a total of 24 games. So a good start for any collector on Evercade. We're going to take a closer look at the Evercade hardware and just see how the EXP works. So here we have the Evercade EXP handheld, a device that is actually quite tricky to film, it would seem, because that 4.3-inch IPS display is actually quite reflective. So, hello, there's the camera that I'm actually filming on. I'm having to kind of keep this at a slight angle because otherwise it's determined to actually focus on the reflections in that screen. Obviously, you know, standard sort of handheld layout on the front. You've got your A, B, X, Y buttons there. You've got D-pad there. You've got a couple of A and B buttons there. I will get to those in a minute. You've got a menu button there, which brings up the menu in the same way that pushing the middle button on the VS controllers do, and you've obviously got your start and select. Everything's very nice and clicky. That D-pad is slightly smushier than I would normally like a D-pad, but it's actually surprisingly responsive, and the buttons here are lovely and clicky. On the top you've got your L and R and L2 and R2 buttons. You've got an on-off button, you've got your HDMI slot there, and obviously cartridge slot there. On the bottom you've got a headphone jack, which is nice. You've got a button here, which again we will come to in a moment. You've got a little indicator for power and battery charging, volume rocker there, that's your USB-C charge port, and you've got your speakers on the out there, which give you a nice stereo output. On the back, obviously, we've got cartridge slot, vents for heat. I think those are the vents. I don't know whether they're related to the speaker. I've not actually thought to check that, to be honest. And you've got a lovely PEGI 12 logo there for all those Capcom games that you've got baked into the unit. Yes, it has to have its own PEGI rating because it has games on it. One of the nicer things that I actually quite like about this is it's got these little rubberized points on the unit, and they kind of correspond to where you're going to roughly grip the EXP while you're using it, which is quite a nice touch. It kind of adds a bit of neatness to actually holding the system. So we're going to power it on. It does take a little while to power on, but you can see we've got a little green light there indicating that there is life in this little system. And we get our Blaze Entertainment logo. Evercade EXP. So it does take a little while to boot up, but once we're there, you'll see it's quite a similar operating system to the VS that we looked at last week. The first screen here is obviously the cartridge screen. It can hold one cartridge, unlike the VS, which could hold two cartridges, so you're only going to see one cartridge's worth of games on here. I've got the IRM cartridge, which comes bundled in with it in at the moment. So obviously you can see we've got 10 Yard Fight, we've got Battle Chopper, In the Hunt, lightning, I'm trying to read this, Lightning Swords. I'm trying to read this around the corner of my camera without my reading glasses on, so I'm doing quite well. Moon Patrol and the ever glorious R-Type. I am going to go through all of these games because I'll be honest with you, apart from Moon Patrol a little bit and R-Type a lot, I'm not overly familiar with a lot of the games on the IRM cards, so we're going to give them a little check out in a future video, so do get sub to the channel for that if you want to see that. On the left hand side here, we've obviously got the settings menu down there, which has similar settings to the to the VS. You know, you can choose your aspect ratio of the games, you can choose whether you've got scan lines on, you can choose whether you've got bezels on the side of the screen. You can also choose a theme for your Evercade EXP. I quite like the Evercade Grid, which is just quite a straightforward theme for the console there. You've also got settings for network and sound, accessibility settings, language settings. Obviously being able to do like system firmware updates via Wi-Fi is a really nice touch. I believe the original Evercade handheld model, you had to update its firmware by actually plugging it into your computer, which of course, you know, we're not in, we should be able to just download it for Wi-Fi now. Obviously you've got the XP option on the left hand side there, which contains all your pre-installed Capcom games. It also contains that game of the month that gets downloaded with the firmware. As you can see, we're still on Bubble Seahorse Adventures at the time of recording this, which is the 2nd of March. So come on, Blaze, let's have another game of the month drop, please. We've also got some hidden games which can be unlocked with those button presses, and they are the same hidden games that are on the VS. I've not actually unlocked them here, so I might do a video going through unlocking those games for anyone who's interested in how to unlock the hidden games on your Evercade console. But obviously if we go into our Capcom games, you can see we've got all our lovely pre-installed Capcom games here. We've got 1942, 1943, 1944. We've got Bionic Commando. We've got Breath of Fire, which is quite a meaty RPG. I've actually got a copy of that on the Game Boy Advance, but I do believe that this is the Super NES version of the game. We've got Captain Commando. We've got the lovely Commando there. Final Fight, absolute classic. Forgotten Worlds. I think I quite like Forgotten Worlds. I had it on the Amiga, which wasn't the best conversion, but I've got some fond memories of playing that game. Ghouls and Ghosts, okay, another classic. A lot of these Capcom games are, you know, very representative of my childhood. Games like Street Fighter, Strider, you know, they were absolute stone cold classics for me as a kid. And the majority of these are the arcade versions, with the exception of Mega Man 1 and 2, Mega Man X and Breath of Fire, which are console versions. So let's fire up a game and take a look at how they run, but also what that magical button and these buttons here do. So let's pop up 1944, for example. So obviously, as with the standard Evercade, you just start into the game, and with it being an arcade game, we need to bang some credit in there. So let's hit the select button to pop some credit in there. We did do a full run through of Sly Spy from the Data East cartridge on the Evercade VS. So again, check the channel for that video. But yeah, here's 1944 running on the Evercade EXP. I'm quite fond of this game. It's quite a nice little fast-paced shooter. It's got a lot of big graphics. This is one of the more recent games in the collection that is on this console. But as you can see, it's a nice clear screen, nice game to play on this kind of screen size. It is a shame that these games are locked to the console, because it would be lovely to have been able to get a cartridge with the Capcom games on. They are the same. The arcade games, though, are the same that you will find in the Capcom Arcade Stadium, which is available on most platforms. So if you do want some big screen gaming on these, you have got some options there. Same with the Mega Man games. You'll find them in the Mega Man Legacy collections, which are available on pretty much every format. I think the only game that really is not available in a modern way is Breath of Fire. But yeah, we've just died there. So let's jump into another game and take a look at what I think is the secret weapon of the EXP. So let's jump into 1942 for a minute. Now, obviously, 1942 was a TATE game cabinet. So it had that long stretched out screen, which you can kind of see here. You've got black bars, quite tall black bars on the left and right. Now there's other games on the Evercade arcade cartridges that do this. Burger Time on the Data East cartridge, for example, does that, and a few other of the arcade games. But obviously on a big screen, you've got a bit more real estate to play with. On a handheld, most systems would have those big black bars, would have quite a thin screen in the middle. Not the Evercade EXP. If we push the magic button down there, you can see the screen flips round and we get the game put into TATE mode, and we get to use these controls down here to play the game. I'm a little bit tight with my recording, but I'm going to try and get a couple of rounds of 1942 in TATE mode and see how we go. I'm not very good at this game at the best of times. So having to play it around the side of my phone while I'm recording here is probably not the best of conditions, but we'll see what we can do. But as you can see, this is quite a nice little way to play the game, the game in TATE mode and make better use of the screen. So Commando will play like this, as will 1943. I think Mercs has this mode on, but yeah, like I say, other games like Burger Time and some of the other games on that Data East cartridge definitely have TATE modes. So there's plenty of options to make use of this on Evercade games at large. I'm not very good at this game, so I'm just going to slam it back into regular mode and quit out. But yeah, so the same deal obviously with the cartridges. They are hot swaps, so you can just reach behind, pull one out and pop another one in. So I've got Good Boy Galaxy here, so I can go in and immediately it'll load into the games menu. And for something like Good Boy Galaxy, which is a fairly modern game, you've got that lovely IPS screen there, which just does real nice wonders for the colours in games like this. It's a really nice way to play games. I think it's a great little handheld. So there you go. That is the Evercade EXP, a little close-up look of it. What are my thoughts on this compared to the VS? I love it a lot. I kind of wasn't expecting to love it as much as I think I do love it. I think it does have some setbacks in comparison to the VS. Namely, you've got your Capcom games baked in on that system. There's no cartridge for Capcom games. You can't put them on the VS. You can play them on the big screen, obviously, if you connect your HDMI cable to the EXP, plug it into the TV, but you're going to be tethered by a HDMI cable. You're only 720p resolution. Obviously, you can't plug multiple controllers in, so for games like Final Fight, Street Fighter 2, you're kind of limited in that respect. but as a handheld extension of the VS as a full set-top console, it's absolutely brilliant. I've been playing some long-form games on my Evercade. I've been playing Alwa's Awakening. Recently got Good Boy Galaxy, which are kind of modern-styled retro games, which have got quite a few hours under the hood when you sort of start dipping into them. And actually sort of having my VS plugged into a big screen, playing a bit on there, being able to just take the cartridge out with save state on it, plug it into the EXP, the EXP, and take it on the go with me, take it around the house, sit on the sofa with it. It's been absolutely brilliant. So I think one of the things I mentioned in the last video was the VS kind of pairs almost with the EXP, and I think I stand by that notion. It's a lovely little system. It's nice and lightweight. It's a lot smaller form factor than a lot of the modern handheld consoles like the Switch, and obviously the Steam Deck, systems like that. It doesn't rely a lot on having a Wi-Fi connection for all of the games that you're running on it. And it's just a real little convenience. It feels like a modern piece of hardware, but the games that you're playing on it are distinctly unfussy compared to modern games. And I think that kind of sums up Evercade as a whole, as an ecosystem for me, is it's modern hardware and in some instances modern games, but they're unfussy. They're easier to kind of have a quick blast on and enjoy. And I think for me, and I think for a lot of players like me, that's going to be a real positive thing. So, do I recommend Evercade EXP? I think I do recommend it a lot. I think I would recommend the Evercade VS first if you are predominantly looking for something that you can set up on a big screen. It really does the graphics on some of those older games justice. It's really nice playing some of the more modern games on a big screen. But if you don't have a big screen, or if you're more used to handheld gaming, maybe you should jump straight in and grab yourself an EXP. Do I recommend you get both? Absolutely. The Evercade EXP is going to set you back about, I think it's £130 RRP. It will play exactly the same games as your Evercade VS. And of course, because save states are all on the cartridge, you can just pop them out of your VS, pop them into your EXP, continue playing, save your game, and vice versa. So, you've got your sit down on the couch gaming, you've got your on the go gaming, you've got your perched up on the kitchen table playing a game while you're waiting for your tea to brew kind of gaming. And for my lifestyle, having both is absolutely the perfect scenario. But I don't think I'd recommend either over the other one. I think, depending on your circumstances, they're both easy suggestions from me. So, another absolute recommendation for Evercade. I've been enjoying my time with Evercade over the last few months that I've been kind of within the Evercade ecosystem, and it's a huge NGB Retro recommendation. So, as always, are you playing Evercade? Have you got some recommendations? Have you got an EXP? Have you only got an EXP? What are your thoughts on it? Shout up in the comments below. Give that video a like if you like the video. If you've not subscribed to the channel, give us a subscribe. It does help us out, and obviously you'll get all of our lovely videos popped into your feed. But yeah, until next time, bye-bye for now.